Hi, I've been up to quite a lot recently and it's been a while, so I figured I'd talk about it a little bit here. Take this video as a short little reintroduction to me and my hobbies of interest, starting off with rhythm games. Now, it's been a while since I've last talked about these. I had some stuff that was preventing me from playing them for a while and I just didn't have the time. But it's summer now, so I do have time, and the first game I played was In the Groove. In case you don't know, it's basically like DDR, but all the charts are community made and it's like slightly different. Anyway, it took me a while to raise my stamina up to the point it was pre-hiatus, but I did eventually manage to get there and then start beating the scores I'd set in that time period and then pushing even further beyond that. My accuracy specifically improved a ton. I found that I was focusing more on hitting the absolute tightest timing window a lot more consistently, rather than just kind of settling for good enough timing. I'd previously experienced this kind of flow state, I guess, back when I was grinding out Sound Voltex a while back, but I've never gotten it on a dance game before, so this was all feeling pretty great. So once I'd built up my stamina, I did try and push the max difficulty I was playing a little bit, mostly hovering around what I was already doing, but I did try some stamina charts and I found they were quite fun. Nothing too crazy though. I had a friend come around and test the setup, and while they were there, they showed me some new song packs I hadn't played before, including the legendary Sexuality Violation 2. You probably haven't heard of this, but it's a song pack consisting of entirely like late 2000s, early 2010s pop songs, but hideously overcharted, like ridiculously funny considering the songs, and I had a load of fun of those once I had the stamina for them. Unfortunately, just as I was getting into the flow of ITG, my knee started acting up. No idea where exactly it came from, maybe just playing the game too much, maybe I was playing VRChat too much, where I have to squat a lot because everyone's avatars are shorter than me. I don't really know, it doesn't really matter where, because it did heal up eventually, but it meant that for a little while I couldn't play dance games, which meant instead I ended up pivoting to Beatmania IIDX. Now this is a game I've played a lot on and off for the last, 5 years, but this summer has easily been one of my biggest bursts of improvement on it so far. The same deal as before with like the improved accuracy, which is even more significant in 2DX considering how tight that timing window is, but also pushing the level of play significantly higher. One big reason for this is that I finally got a new controller to replace my aged JKOC, the PS2 controller with the membrane buttons. Friends of a channel over at Nightshade wanted to get into VRChat and ended up trading me their Phoenix WAN for exchange for my Pico 4 setup. Worked out well in the end since the items we traded were like not being used by either of us, so the value in it was fine, but we'll get back to VRChat later. So in addition to the massive buff from the new con, seriously it's so good, I also finally decided to switch up my playstyle. 2DX can be pretty picky about where you lay out your fingers on the keys, and the way I was doing it before was only using a very small amount of my fingers, and it just didn't scale up. I couldn't use it on the harder charts, and when I tried, it was just so finger cramp inducing. And so I decided to finally switch to a newer style that incorporates much more of my fingers, and it's allowed me to just play a lot more comfortably than before. A fun side effect I noticed is that my typing posture shifted to align with my new 2DX posture. That was pretty fun. So, with all of those new things in place, by the time I'm writing this video, I've raised my highest clear from a level 9 to a 10, keep in mind 2DX only has 12 levels, so that's a pretty big jump, and my highest grade from a AA on a 6 to a AAA on a 7, keep in mind AAA is the max grade you can get, so good stuff all around. And I'm definitely going to keep pushing further into the foreseeable future. I'll inevitably burn out at some point, but for now, stuff's going good. Okay, this is the part where I show Hot Wheels World Race. I don't have enough time here to talk about the game. It deserves a full video because it is seriously one of the most interesting and unique racing games I've ever played. Just look at the clips I'm playing. Oh my gosh. Go check out the speedrun.com page. Go check out the game if you can. Okay, I'll get back to it later. Bye. SuperHotVR. This is another oddball pick. I imagine most people who are even aware of this game played the campaign years ago and then just kind of left it there, which I did as well. But I found out last year that it has an endless mode, and it's actually really fun. So I've just been kind of casually playing that on and off ever since I got my Quest 3. There's a decent amount of interesting stuff to be said about this game. Like, Endless Mode kind of has a similar flow to a bullet hell game, where with like the bombs and the dodging and all that, but then the way you all interact with it is very unique for a shooter game, because you have the full 6 degrees of movement offered by VR, and oh my gosh, it's even more insane if you play in a large play space like my garden, where you get to walk around fully. That was going to be the premise of the Pico Motion Trackers Part 2, by the way. I'm probably not going to do that video, but yeah, I may return to SuperHot sometime, because it's also quite interesting, and I would love to break down all of the mechanics in depth. Let me know if you'd be interested in that. Oh, and speaking of VR, you might assume that since I somehow stumbled into the niche of being a VRChat YouTuber, that I'd be spending a lot of time in here over the break. Not really. You have to remember, I sold my Pico 4 setup. Sure, I still have the 4E headset with the face tracking, but I don't have any controllers, so it's a massive pain in the ass to use now. I do think the trade was worth it in the long run, but for this summer it meant that I wasn't really able to get inside of VRChat and enjoy it all too much. That's not to say I didn't hop into VRChat at all this summer, it's just that it's mostly been on my Quest 3 with my Vive Wand FBC setup, which is just not as ideal. I did end up getting a Vive 3.0 to use as a hip node, and that has made things a lot better, but nowhere near as good as what I had before. I do still like this thing quite a lot, and I do want to get back into it at some point, so I have been slowly building up the means necessary to get back my old face tracked setup. But I don't know if I can say I'll be going back to doing VRChat videos anytime soon. I really wanted to get back into the habit of playing single-player games this year. That is, single-player, linear, campaign-style games, compared to the more open-ended, arcade-style stuff that's been my bread and butter for like 5 years now. I'd already started this up earlier on in the year, but the big stretch of free time proved to be a great opportunity to check out a lot of stuff that I've been putting off for a while, such as my hand tracking bugging out, such as Sonic Frontiers. This is actually a pretty quick turnaround from release to me playing a modern Sonic game, considering it took me until 2022 to play Sonic Forces, but I saw it on sale, and I'd heard good enough things about it that curiosity got the better of me. I don't have too much to say about the story, it'll probably grow on me with time, but I will say even now, it is really refreshing to see how much of a drastic shift in direction it is for the series, and I guess you could say that about the entire game. Like, there's open world segments now, and I enjoyed them quite a lot more than I expected. It was probably a mix of being very streamlined compared to a lot of other open world games, and also just how fun Sonic is to control and just move around, have fun in these spaces. The cyberspace levels were a mixed bag for me. It was fun to try and go fast in them, but the controls often felt like they were fighting against me doing that. I know this game is going for something different compared to Sonic Generations, but it was really hard to let go of the expectations set by that game, considering how similar these seem on the surface. Likewise, the music was also a departure from the series norm. Granted, the series has been so inconsistent with its releases in the last 10-15 years, I can't really say when the last time there was a norm for it, if ever. But I enjoyed pretty much the entire soundtrack. I just wish the cyberspace levels didn't finish so quickly so I could hear more of their songs. I'm quite excited to see where the series goes next. Well, the answer to that is Shadow Generations, but I don't really feel like playing that right now. Odin Sphere. So I saw this in CEX and picked it up on a complete whim without knowing anything about it. Turns out it was the first RPG I've ended up playing in quite a few years. It was pretty fun too. There's lots of interesting gameplay mechanics and approaches to RPG design that would be really fun to talk about, not to mention, oh my gosh, the visuals are so good. But my PS2 froze in the middle of saving and corrupted my file after 4 hours of gameplay. Do not feel like replaying that, but sometime I will have to get back to this game because it is really nice. I had already played this game before, but it's not one I regularly revisit. I decided to try a different character this go around, but otherwise it was pretty much as I remembered. Pretty fun gameplay, long levels, hard bosses, it all checks out to how I remember it. The bosses were definitely still painful, but I found that my playstyle was incredibly fast and erratic, just kind of wailing on them without any strategy or anything, and dying. Eventually I figured out they have patterns, very predictable, easily to spot patterns, and once I figured that out, played patiently, waited for the time I was meant to attack them, and then repeated that, it was a lot easier. And yes, I know this is like baby's first boss design, but again, I've played nothing but rhythm, racing, and to a lesser extent shooter games for the last 5 years or so. I am very much incredibly rusty on single-player games. Please cut me some slack. But overall, this was a fun little experience. I definitely have to check out the sequel sometime. It's going to be interesting to see how they evolve, the gameplay, the story, the presentation, all of that. Can't wait. Oh, by the way, you might notice that this footage is in 720p. That's because, remember the trade earlier? I've been angling for something like the deck long before it was even announced. Anyone remember the Smash Z? Probably not. But I never had the kind of money to drop on one, even at the lower used prices they go for now. But while we were sorting out the details of the aforementioned VR trade, I offhandedly mentioned my interest in getting a deck, and Nightshade offhandedly mentioned that she had a deck that she wanted to get rid of. How convenient! So, I have a Steam Deck now, which is pretty cool. I feel like a review of this specific hardware is pretty irrelevant by now. It's pretty much exactly what you think it is, so I'll spare the details. I will say, it is still impressive to me that Valve was able to contort and conform Linux of all things into such a usable OS specifically for gaming, while also not putting in any arbitrary restrictions on what I can do with the hardware I bought. Nintendo. The mic there. I'm only slightly sorry. I barely even played anything on my PC in the last year or so having a dedicated gaming device where I could just pick it up and then just play a game, it was an absolute game changer for me, and the reason why I have played so much this summer. Pacman Championship Edition 2. Whoa. This is one of my favourite games to just hop into for a little bit, to just switch my brain off with pretty colours, good music, and very tight gameplay. So it was one of the first ones I tried out on my deck. I found it worked pretty well as a refresher after a longer session in one of the single-player games I was playing. That is, single-player campaigns. This is technically falls under skill game, but it's not in the skill game section because I don't treat it seriously and wasn't documenting my progress with it. Shh! Especially since it doesn't support cloud save, so I had to go through and unlock all the mazes again on the deck. It gave me a nice excuse to see all the stuff it had to offer again, at least. I don't really have too much to add on this game. It's very much what you see is what you get. There's probably some kind of analysis to be made on this game as a retro revival compared to something like the Pacman World remake that happened a few years later. I don't really feel like doing that right now, so instead I'll tell you, go listen to this game's soundtrack. It's great stuff. There's a reason why I've used it as the background music in a lot of my videos. Lovely Planet. This is another smaller game I tried out after getting the deck, specifically to experiment with how well its control scheme worked for first-person shooters. Since the game was designed for a keyboard and mouse setup, it felt pretty clumsy with the deck controls. Definitely no replacement for a real KBM setup, but you get the convenience of portability, and you can just hop into it, and it's still more accurate than an Xbox controller with the raw stick aiming. As for the game itself, yeah, it's pretty fun. It's a really interesting idea to make an FPS game designed around speedrunning bite-sized levels. I don't know if I've seen anything else like it. And it was pretty fun to casually blaze through the first world. The second and third worlds introduced time-sensitive mechanics that definitely had me squeezing my controller a bit. The sweat probably didn't actually help with the trackpads, but I was able to get through a decent chunk of them before eventually throwing in the towel. Not that I didn't like the game, I just had my fill and decided I didn't need to play through to the end, because it gets hard.
Hyperdimension Neptunia Rebirth 2.
This one's another revisit. I got really into this series back in 2019, you can actually catch some of the music in my old videos from the time, but it's been a while since I've last played a game from it, and the brief amount of time I'd spent in Odin Sphere got me hankering for another RPG. Most of the story's drama held a lot less weight for 19-year-old me than it did for 14-year-old me, but a lot of the character interactions were still pretty fun even now. The battle system was still very enjoyable though. It's been too long since I last sunk my teeth into an RPG like this. In case you're not familiar with this series already, I would very much describe Neptunia as an RPG lover's RPG, which is ironic for me since I've never really been able to get into any beginner RPGs like Pokemon and the like, but throw me in the deep end with a series that has insane amounts of grinding and stats and numbers and all that stuff and I'm suddenly all over it. It's weird. The typical flow for these games is some kind of cutscene tells you to go to a dungeon, you go to the dungeon, you get a story event, you get a boss fight, you eat shit to the boss fight, spend the next few sessions grinding, then beat the boss fight thanks to good strategy, patience, and a bit of RNG. Watch another cutscene, and then repeat the process. Since it'd been a while since I'd last played one of these games, I did a lot more grinding during the early game than I probably should have, and I think that accidentally ended up screwing with the game's balance. Most of the bosses ended up being total pushovers, which I guess at least helped with the game's pacing. Still get a cold sweat thinking about my playthrough of Victory back in 2020 where I swear I spent like a solid week or two grinding just for the final boss. For the revisit, I decided, screw it, let's go for the true ending, and yep, that was a rough grind. It was pretty much just a large amount of grinding, but the best way to raise the stats needed was to accept, complete, turn in, accept, complete, turn in the same quest over and over. As if the developers knew that that would be quite tedious, you can unlock a feature that straight up skips random encounters, which definitely helped to ease the grind just a little bit. But overall, I definitely had a good time with this game. I don't know if I'd go back and revisit any other ones in the series, but I know they've been doing quite a few new games recently, so I might end up having to check one of those out when they go on sale. So overall, I had a pretty good time with this game. Not enough to the point where I'd want to replay any of the other older games that I've already done before, but enough to check out some of the newer games, because I've heard they've shaken them up quite a bit since I was last interested in the series. Okay, we're in the anime section. We're already in the weeb zone, but we're in the Bakuon. Okay, I saw this in CEX on Blu-ray for really cheap, and I saw it had motorcycles, and I had a hankering for motorbikes at that time, so I was like, screw it, let's see what's up with this. Yeah, it is a prime example of an early 2010s moe blob show. Literally no appeal besides cute girls doing cute things adjacent to your hobby of interest, and even then, it barely appealed from that perspective. I saw a really funny review honestly critiquing this show, like complaining how there's no character development or how annoying the characters are in that early to mid 2010s writing style. It's hard to describe, but like, I recognized it when I saw it, and I just found it so funny because like, the show clearly doesn't intend to be taken that seriously. And yeah, like I said before, even as someone interested in bikes, it barely even appealed from that perspective. I watched a couple of episodes of Super Cub back last autumn, which is actually the reason why I got interested in bikes to begin with, and I imagine that'd be significantly better than this show in like every way, but that's very much an autumn show, so I'm waiting until autumn, winter for revisiting that one. Okay, it's Bakemonogatari time, gamers. It's time for peak anime. Maybe with an asterisk, with a big fucking asterisk. Is this series still relevant? I've not heard anyone my own age reference it, or like anything else from this time period. God, anime fans really do have a 3-year memory. But it definitely feels like one of those big historic series that they should be aware of. The way I got introduced to this series was by listening to the audiobooks of all things. Good adaptations too, but I decided I should probably watch the anime too, because that's the one that gets referenced a lot. And oh my gosh, I'd forgotten how much I like this series. The light novels have a really slow pace to them, so many of them is just characters going back and forth, which must have been really daunting to translate to a visual medium like animation, but I think the staff did a great job in that regard. I really appreciate this because it makes this series feel weirdly grounded for how outlandish the dialogue can sometimes get, not to mention the fantastical elements at the centre of a story. The romance especially hits close to some of my own personal experiences. The characters mostly just tease and flirt with each other, which I appreciate that it's mostly focusing on these smaller micro elements rather than the big macro events that define a relationship that you'd often see in this kind of media. The closest thing you'd get to that in the 12th episode hit me right in the feels in a way that I rarely get with this kind of stuff. It felt like such a nice full circle moment for the couple, and recontextualized the ending theme in a really sweet way. And keep in mind, this is the macro element of the character's romance, not even getting into the character's own personalities or so many other parts of this series that I love. Like, it goes to some really heavy places that you don't often see tackled within media in a pretty delicate way. And also there's a scene where the main character randomly decides to redacted the lolly child character. Yeah, and that ends up planting Monogatari as a series that I think is amazing and deserving of viewership, deserving of its historic status. It is really good, but it is also a series that I very much cannot recommend to a lot of people because fuck. Okay, that seems good. Let me just see how much time this video has been taking up, and oh no. Okay, it's lightning round time. Madoka Magica, Pueli Meli, whatever the fuck it is. I am so late to the party here that I assumed that most of the major plot beats had already been spoiled for me, and yet the show still surprised me quite a lot. She becomes Yuri Jesus? Good stuff all around. I do want to watch the movies, but I probably won't for quite a while. I like to leave some space between different parts of the same series. I'd rate it Genurabuchi out of 10.
An arcade?
As a certified Game Center girl myself, I had to see what was up with this one. I found it funny how all the games were legally distinct, except the Taito ones, so I'm guessing they were the sponsor. I watched this one without subs, and I actually understood a decent amount of it, which is pretty cool since I've never really had that experience before, and also very fitting for a show about language exchange. Also, the way they went about dubbing the show into English is friggin' hilarious.
How would you say it? Oi! Today's Valentine's, innit?
There's definitely something to be said about how the depiction of arcades within this show just kind of takes them for granted. I don't know, dog. It's possible something more interesting happened in the later episodes, but I dropped off this one because I'm bad at keeping up with shows as they air weekly, so I only got like 3 episodes in. This series was born out of a character from SMG4 of all things, My Generation's Skibidi Toilet, but with the context in mind that this show was essentially a passion project led by a relative outsider who up to that point was mostly animating with Gmod ragdolls. It is impressive how much I was on board with this. That's not to say there weren't a couple of bumps here and there, especially during the first season when they were still getting to grips with things and apparently mistreating their workers, but on the whole the show was very enjoyable. Especially for a web series, it was really good stuff. It's a shame it's over now though. Let's just go on the channel and see what else they've done since then and— Digital Circus jump scare! Okay, film time, movie time. Cutie Honey 2004. I feel like my expectations were set way too high by the opening of this film. Genuinely 10 out of 10 stuff there, and the rest of the film just didn't match up to that energy. It was still pretty enjoyable though. I imagine I'll enjoy a lot more on a revisit. Okay, fuck all that weeb shit. It's time for that real good garbo now. Enough action to boot James Bond into a bin liner. Yes, that really is the quote they put on the box. I caught a scene from this on TV a while back, and it was such insane cornball cheese that I had to track down the film on DVD. Yes, it only ever released on DVD. Inexplicably, they got Donnie Yen to choreograph 2 of the fight scenes? Good stuff. Definitely worth finding in your local bargain bin and doing a watch party with some friends. Okay, IRL stuff. This was the second year that I haven't gone to MCM, the biggest con within London. There's nothing really interesting enough to justify the entry cost there, but I did check out Hyper Japan, which is an equally large but significantly more focused con in London. I accidentally blew my budget way too early getting loads of decorations and stuff in anticipation of moving out. I would have probably been a bit more conservative with my spending next time, but I don't really regret it too much. I would do it again though. My friends took me to see Ai Higuchi perform live, and I'd never heard her stuff before besides the Bocce the Rock opening that I missed because I was slightly late to it. But it was a very enjoyable experience to watch live music, which is something I've barely ever done. Although the lighting was incredibly overwhelming, I had a Ralsei wizard hat to help block that for me. Shoutouts to this guy going absolutely ham on the piano.
Oh my gosh. This is fucking Unravel.
I think it is.
Threads Unravel.
And shoutouts to this girl who bought her 3DS all the way from Japan to Street Pass. The only real negative thing I have to say, besides the absolute pain of getting in, is that UK cons are majorly deficient in terms of arcades. Well, it's not my. I've seen what you US folks get at your cons. You have it so much luckier compared to us. And before we wrap up, I want to quickly talk about YouTube stuff. Yes, I know this is kind of self-indulgent, whatever. Considering this video was pretty spur of the moment, I'm really happy that a lot of people resonated with it and enjoyed it. And this one? I don't really know what happened with this one, but I'm glad for big number. I'd say Hig are probably happy at the amount of exposure I gave him, but judging by your comments, most of you didn't even like them. But hey, I'm the messenger, don't shoot me. But Hig actually did give me a discount code, and as promised, I did make it pen piss. I don't know if you'd actually want to buy the gloves, but if you do, link. But as I've kind of already hinted at already, I'm not going to be doing a lot more VR videos going forwards. I still like this technology, but I've got lots of other stuff that I'm interested in talking about, and this channel has always been whatever I want to do. So I hope you'll bear with me, and I hope that whenever the new stuff does come out, that it will be worth the wait. But until then, take care everyone.